Basically, if you were at 50%, it indicates you don't have much income left at the end to try and pay your bills or to operate. Less than 30 is good, and over 40 is a concern. And then your net worth, it varies farm by farm, but obviously you want a higher net worth. That means you've got more assets and less liabilities.
I'll comment on the net worth real quick, but that can change every year when you figure this, because what do we see land prices do in the past couple months? I mean, if you're figuring current market value for your land, your net worth, if you own a couple hundred acres, could have went up $500,000 or better. And I mean, so you need to be looking at that from year to year when you make net worth. Yeah, I'm worth on that extra $500,000 this year, but why is that? Do I have more actual money to spend, or did something else change so that I have the spending power more likely? Yeah.
Okay, next I would like to introduce Clint Marin. He's a 2002 Iowa State grad. He majored in ag business. Since then, he's done farm credit for about 8.5 years out in the Marshalltown area. He's actually a native from southern Marshall County. So, I don't know, is anybody in here from that area?
State Center, worked at FS.
Okay. So Clint's going to come and kind of talk about if you were to go into his office and try and secure a loan, what he's looking for, what's important. So I recommend you guys listen up, because this is where you'll be in maybe 4 months when you're graduating. So.
Most likely we're all going to need a loan or stuff on it. We don't already have health.
The more questions you have for him, the less work you have to do later on your project. So.
All right. Well, thanks for asking me to come up here. A couple things I just wanted to highlight. Like Megan said, I've been with Farm Credit over in the Marshalltown Beacon Marketplace for going on 8.5, going on 9 years. And remember, Link and I, it wasn't too long ago sitting in your guys' seat. But so enjoy it while it lasts. It's a fun stage of life. But you know, being in this class, you guys are very intent about probably farming someday. So what they just talked about and presented to you, if you're coming and wanting to be in farming, there's two things needed. Well, the main thing you need to know is that farming is a very, very capital-intensive venture, meaning that it takes a lot of cash, takes a lot of money to get started. You know, putting down payments on farms, buying equipment, renting land. A lot of money is involved anymore for a small profit margin comparatively to a lot of other industries. So we've found that there's a lot of truth that you maybe being here, having families that are farming, will be a huge benefit, and probably anymore with as competitive as everything is in farming, about the only way you can farm. Not exclusively, but the odds are very much stacked against you if you cannot, if your family's not in it and have a dad to help you get started, or trade labor for machinery or something like that. So what I was telling you before we kind of got started is the decisions you make even in college actually will become very, very important. So you graduate, get your first job, maybe working at the FS, getting some off-farm income, trying to buy into or helping dad on the operation or something like that, which is what I've personally done myself. But just takes a lot of money to get started. But so get that first job, you want to go rent some ground, buy a tractor, something like that. I mean, you're going to need typically, whether it's some livestock, buying some bred heifers, buying a tractor, something like that, you're going to need minimum 20% down before you can even come in the door. One thing I'll say with regards to applying for a loan, that's probably what you want to know from me. They did a good job explaining all the ratios. We don't use all of them exclusively. I'll touch on the high points. Each lender maybe is a little different, but balance sheet and cash flow, and I brought some extra copies of them, but something you want to familiarize yourself with. Balance sheet pretty much is of the assets you have, how much you own. I mean, how much of what value you have as an asset, how much you own of it, compared to how much you got borrowed, how much the bank owns what you drive around, kind of thing. So As a percentage, minimum, we like to see a 50%, what we call the percent equity or owner's equity, meaning that you're 50% levered in your total operation. Starting out as we've got an ag start program that allows for you to start out if you don't meet our standards. So, like I said, 20% down on all your chattel assets, which would be most of your intermediate livestock, machinery, things like that. On a land purchase, which if you're farming, you probably aspire to purchase land someday. That we're a little more conservative on. 35% down, 35% down. So when you get 6,000 an acre farm ground, and you're going to be putting. Oh, that's a hard number. That's an easy one. 3,000 acre farm ground, and you're putting $1,000 an acre down, kind of thing. I guess from 6,000 to 2,000 an acre. So you take that across 40 acres, and I mean you're putting 80 grand down just to get the down payment for that 40 acres. So what a lot of people, so the hardest thing to do is buying that first farm. After you have that first farm and you have equity, you can always borrow against that equity to buy that next farm. But that first one, that's cash money you got to cough up pretty much. So, and the structure is what's pretty important. The other main scenario we use, so we look at owner's equity of the balance sheet. How levered are you? The other one we look at is working capital, current ratio. So of your current liabilities, or, your current assets minus your current liabilities gives you working capital. So that's your cushion. That's in a sense money in the bank. That's say this year you have a drop in prices, or you get drowned out, it's too wet, yields weren't quite there. You've got working capital to fall back on to cash flow to the next year. So that's very, very important. Can't stress that enough. I stopped at our local FSA office and grabbed a cash flow, and they've got some extra sheets over here of that. But basically, I was out of business, so it's econ, and they always qualify everything by saying they make all these assumptions. Well, in your cash flow, we try to be pretty conservative, but you're making some assumptions on what you may be able to go to your FS, prepay your seed, chemical, fertilizer, know what Dad's going to charge you for fuel, machinery, whatever that case may be. You know what your rents are, but you've got to make some assumptions on what kind of yield you may get for that next year, what kind of price, if you forward sell, you can kind of track that in, and then you're looking for a positive margin there. All right. So, and that's way more detailed. But basically, that's what you're doing. You're just basically netting out, your revenue less your expenses and seeing your margin. So you're looking for a positive margin there. Because over and above expenses, that's what you're going to probably live off of, and/or plow back into the operation to build on your balance sheet equity.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Guys, Clint took time off work to come in here today. If you could put your cell phones away and pay attention, then great. Thanks.
So let's see. So another thing, like I mentioned, so when you're graduating out of college, you get that first job, for instance. The decisions you make, maybe to go out and buy that brand new Duramax or new car or something, might not be the best thing to do. Or if you're like I was, having some student loans, putting yourself through college or something like that. So trying to put some money down, or not having a bunch of debt to dig out of right out of college. I know probably it was like when I was in college, you get, I don't know how many different credit card offers every week or month or whatever, but not letting that get out of hand and trashing your credit right away, because if you can manage that credit, that's going to affect your credit bureau score, which if you don't have, so you probably all heard in your finance classes the 5 C's of credit. So there's character, there's credit, there's conditions, there's collateral, and there's capacity. So capacity is on your cash flow.